Hello everyone, today's poem is 初发扬子寄元大校书 by Wei Yingwu. I had a video on his another poem, 滁州西涧, could be the most popular and famous poem by Wei Yingwu. Anyhow, through the history, the reviews or the comments through the history, Wei Yingwu is more famous for his 5 characters poem, 五言诗, which means each sentence was composed of 5 Chinese characters. That's what's so-called 五言诗. And he was so-called the Great Wall of the 5 character poetry. Nobody can go beyond him on that special poetry. So today, this poem is one of his famous poetry, 五言诗, 5 character poetry. Wei Yingwu is a unique person in the Tang Dynasty, or even through the Chinese history. So he was born in the most famous and powerful family in the Tang Dynasty. So that was recorded and wrote in the old Tang book. And his family, the Wei family, is the most noble, most powerful, and most prosperous family through the Tang history in the country of the Tang. So there's another idiom that so-called 为度离天去天尺五. So the 2 families actually, the both 2 families lives quite near in the southern suburb of the Chang'an city. Wei family and the Du family, they are just 1.5 feet below the sky. So what is sky? The sky is always refers to the emperor. So these 2 families are the only 2 families just a little below the royal family. So that's the powerful and prosperous family described. One more thing. So the character Wei, his family name, in a normal case, it's the 3rd tone, Wei. So that's the 3rd tone. But for his name, should be spelled as the 2nd tone, Wei Yingwu, the 2nd tone. So there's a very interesting coincidence. The local dialect of Xi'an today, or the former Chang'an city, this character was spelled as the 2nd tone, as it was required when pronouncing Wei Yingwu's name, as always. And the residence place of the Wei family in the Tang Dynasty today is a small town. The name of that town was so-called Weiqu, the same character, Weiqu. And that's spelled as 2nd tone as well in the local dialect. For Wei Yingwu himself, he's quite unique in his big, powerful, prosperous family. He's the best known person in that family for today's people because of his poetry. Definitely there are several other poets from these big families, but he could be the only one or only poet known by today's average people, no matter how many premier ministers from that family, no matter how many queens from that big Wei family. So in short, Wei was born in a big noble family, and he served the emperor since he's 15 as the bodyguard. But actually, that's only from the term of that his title. But basically, he was the playmate of the emperor. So he saw all the things, of course, the after-hour things of the emperor, and he plays with the emperor. So we can see that from his poetries. And for his personalities, he was a really pretty bad guy, or someone bully other people or do a lot of bad things. But nobody dared to blame him or punish him for his bad deed, because in one of his own poem, he wrote it as 私利不敢普，利在白玉溪。私利 or just equivalent to the policeman today. The policeman dare not to take me down because I'm just standing on the white steps all made of jade. 白玉溪, the white step of jade, which means that's the place of the emperors. So the policeman want to take him down, but he is standing with the emperor on that royal court, on the royal palace. Nobody dare to take him or even blame him. So that's his character or personality in his youth time. And everything changed because of the civil war in his 19 years old. And the emperor fled, and he lost his jobs, and he get married very soon, the second year after the civil war broke. And I think these two factors fundamentally changed him. He started to work hard on to study some knowledge, to study the history, to study the literature, and he started to pursue the normal pursuit of the Tang people to get a position in the central government. Of course, with his powerful families, with his so many associations with the royal court and families, he started his career after several years of hard learning. Since then, he became another person. He cares the people under him so much, and he tried to do anything good to make the people's living better in the miserable civil war's time, and he was praised by the average people. Anyhow, through his whole career life, it looks like he was still in a big trouble or in a big conflicts in his inner mind. He quit his job from time to time and rest in his hometown or in some rural places for several years, and then he returned to his job or to another position to serve the country, to serve the government again, and then he quit again. So that's the things happened several times, repeatedly happened in his lifetime. And one of the very, very famous things about his life story is he was a very, very good local governor, praised by the local people. And one of the main reasons is he never make money from his duty. So with the salary, just only with the salaries, he was so poor. And when he was finished one of his duty in Suzhou City, and he even don't have the money to help him to go back to the central government, to Chang'an City, to his hometown, which is in the south suburb of the Chang'an City. He just stayed in a temple in Suzhou City and died in poverty. So that's a very famous story about him. He was in such a poor when he died, and he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. So that's a legend. That's one of the many legends in the Tang Dynasty. Now let's look at this simple poem. The simplicity is also one of its features praised by the later generations. 初发扬子寄元大校书，韦应物。萋萋去亲爱，泛泛入烟雾。归照洛阳人，残中广陵树。今朝此为别，何处还相遇？世事波上舟，颜回安得住？ By reading this poem, I feel a little nervous and uncomfortable, and maybe that's one of the characteristics of this poem, or the big background of this poem, because the very talented poet, they always like to use the tones to reflect something. Why is this poetry sounds nervous and uncomfortable? Because there's 4 pair of sentences. The rules is the last word of that pair should be used the first tone or second tone, which in the Asian term was so-called 平声, the flat tone. It makes the sound last and stable. So let's check every character, the last character of the 4 pair sentences. The first is 烟雾. Wu is fourth tone, so that violates the regulation. The second pair, 广陵树, the fourth tone, also violates the regulation. Third pair, 还相遇, fourth tone. The fourth pair, 颜回安得住, fourth tone still, so he violates the regulation or the code of writing poetry in every pair of this poem. The title 初发扬子寄元大校书, 初 is at the starting point. 发扬子, so I'm leaving the place of Yangtze. 寄元大校书, 寄 is writing a poem or writing a letter to someone. 元大校书 is one person. 元大 means that guy was with the family name of Yuan, and he was the big brother in that big family, the eldest. 校书 is the title or the position's name he served for the central government, so that's the tradition. They put the title, the position's name, after his name. So the title means just after I started my journey leaving the Yangtze, the place of Yangtze, I write this poem to the person, Yuan Da, the big brother of that Yuan family. And another coincidence is his wife is from Yuan family. It could be from the same family of this person, or could be not. But my guess, they could be from the same family or the same big family. So they have the relationships between the poet and Yuan Da, the people who was writing to, and they are relatives. They are the Yuan Da is the brother-in-law to poet Wei Yingwu. Be careful. The brother-in-law, this relationship is my personal guess, and in fact there was no evidence in the history book who was that person, who was the Yuan brother it is, and what the relationship between them. But they are very best friends between. They have a lot of the relationships, but we don't know how the relationship it was. And the Yangtze is a fort name, and the Yangtze River, the river name basically is from that fort name. And in the very, very ancient time, this place is Yangzhou city. It used to be a very, very famous city in the Chinese history, but today it's just a normal city, a small city in Jiangsu province. And what's this place or this fort, special fort, through the Chinese history? Just take this place identical to the Shanghai city today, because at the very ancient time, this place is at the river mouth and it faced the open seas, just like Shanghai today. And Guangzhou is quite similar to Yangtze or Yangzhou in the ancient time at the river mouth of Pearl River, but much less famous and popular. But today, Guangzhou is still a big city. It's still taken as the river mouth city of the Pearl River, but Yangtze and Yangzhou lost its ancient status. But when we're reading this poem, let's take Yangtze or Yangzhou as Shanghai today. So suppose the poet Wei Yingwu was living Shanghai, living a very prosperous, big commercial city, to another place for his new duty. 凄凄去亲爱，泛泛入烟雾。Sadly, I'm leaving my best friends, my beloved person, and on the boat, up and downs, slowly I'm rushing to the smoke and fog. So be careful. 亲爱 today it's just like honey in English. It's the term between lovers. But in the ancient time, it's not one word, it's two words. 亲 means relatives. 爱 means the person who are in love. And most time in the poem it's between two male person, not male to female, female to male. So here in this sentence we know this the Yuan Da should be a relative to him, so he can use the term 亲爱 to call him. I'm leaving you, my father-in-law. Okay, that's my guess. I'm leaving you, my relative, my beloved friends. And also the characteristics of this pair of sentences is quite unique. 凄凄泛泛. So this very, very vividly or depict the situation he's about leaving his best friends, and also this gives us a very classic sensibilities, because the reduplication, the writing of reduplications always praised and treated as a classic. 归照洛阳人，残中广陵树. So this pair of sentences is the most praised in the later generations. 照 is the oar of boat. So 归照 means he's on a boat, homeward bound. And also the destination clearly referred to as 洛阳人. Anyhow, he's not a 洛阳人, but it's most probably like he was going to Luoyang city for his new job, and that way is also homeward bound, because from Yangzhou to Luoyang is on the midway to Chang'an city. So he can also can call this boat as the boat homeward bound. 残中广陵树. 残中 the bell rings, the sound of the bell rings was weaker and weaker because he's leaving Yangzhou city. And also 广陵树 means the tree of Yangzhou city. 广陵 is an alternative name for Yangzhou city as well. So in this pair of sentences, he point out the destination of this journey. So that's the normal writing requirement in a departing poem. You should write about your destinations, and also you should write where you are parting from. So the destination is Luoyang city, and he was on a boat, and he was hearing the rain bells sound weaker and weaker. 残中 is very, very sad, because 残 normally means handicapped, something decaying. So that gave a lot of the sadness feelings within this pair of sentences. So you can see it's in a little bit contrast, the comparisons. The 归道, so homeward bound, is a little bit joy, a little bit anxious, and the 残中 is very sad, and the sound of the decaying sound of the bell rings make the poet very sad. So this also is a response to the title 出发, just about leaving Yangzhou city. He just feels so sad, even it's a homeward bound trip for a new job in the East capital, a very good place. But he feels so sad. Why? Because 戚戚去亲爱, he's leaving his best friends, his best relatives. 今朝此为别，何处还相遇? So this morning we depart from each other. From now on, where can we meet again? So in the context, when we're reading this self-ask questions, where can we meet again? Actually, we can feel that he gave the answer already. We may never meet each other again, lifelong, in the lifetime. And this is a quite ordinary situation in that time, in the Civil War's time. Just imagine how many people died, how many people disappeared, and how many his friends, relatives died during the Civil Wars, and how many best friends disappeared or never had the chance to meet up each again. And in the history book, that in the area of the wars that the people left is only 1/10 of the population before compared to the population before the civil wars. So that's the huge disaster that we never can imagine nowadays. So in that time, whenever meet with an old friend, a relative, a family members, it's the utmost happiness they could have, because in the common sense, this guy could be died, or this guy could run away to some very far place, and in the lifetime they could never see each other again. With similarity, when two friends, when two relatives or family members, they are about parted, normally they will take this as the last time they can see each other. When they parted, either you or either I could be died anytime, or in a chaos run away to a place, to a nowhere place, and nobody, to a far away place. So when the two friends parted, this 99% could be the chance they see each other for the last time. 世上波上舟，颜回安得住? So the things in this life is just like the boat on the wave. 颜回安得住? Yan is downstream, Hui is upstream. So no matter which direction you go on the wave, you could never stop. 安得住, and how could you manage? 住 means stop, because the boat is on a rushing river, on a dynamic, waving river. No matter which directions you go, how you make your own choices, you are always on the wave, and you are always not by yourself. So that's the simple poem about. The wording is quite simple, very easy to understand. But when you further reading into the history background, the poet's personal background, and you feel how deeply the love in between his friends, he's on a homeward bound journey, very joyful, should be very joyful and happy. But just after he start his boat, all his mind goes back to his friends who he's saying farewell to, and how deeply these two persons loved to each other, the feelings beneath. And from the further descriptions and from the profound, the deepest love between his friend, he and his friends, and then we feel the so profound sadness because the miserable life of the country, because of the sadness of the situations. Nobody know how long could you lived, and nobody could make sure where could you lived. You are on a big river, on the big wave front. You have no choice. You just can let yourself floating with the wave, or could be bottomed up by the wave. Anything could happen. So that's the situation in the Civil War, especially you know the Civil War, or even you are in a similar situations. And what's more, the anti-revolutionary rules of the tone. So he violated the rule of the tones. He used the fourth tone in the ending of each pair, make the reading or reciting uncomfortable or nervous. So he used this violation of the tone actually reflect the nervous, the inner mind nervous and unsafetyness of that time or his feelings. And one more takeaway is Wei Yingwu is a genius to describe something of a boat. In his best known poem, 出舟西涧, he described the boat as 野渡无人，舟自横. You can check the details in my another video. And in this poem, he described the boat as 世上波上舟，颜回安得住. So the life is just like the boat on the wave, or the world is just like the boat on the wave. You can never know, or you can never decide which way to go by yourself. So that's very helpless feelings. And also, this feeling could be derived from the Taoist philosopher of Zhuangzi. So Zhuangzi wrote a very famous sentence that he described the best status of a society or even for a person is like a boat with no rope tied on. So the boat was just floating with the river, with the water. So that's a sort of the freedom, the best freedom a person, a boat could enjoy. But in this poem, I do think Wei Yingwu borrowed that story from Zhuangzi, but by his genius rearranging of the wording and also from the context, he changed that meaning of Zhuangzi, that I'm a boat with no rope tied on, so I had to float with the big waves and never stop. It's a very helpless feelings, and it's a helpless feeling about the worst time. So many people killed, so many people lost, and nobody know how long he could live. Nobody know where he can live. So that's this simple poem about, and that's something could be very profound beneath, and that's Wei Yingwu. Okay, that's for today. Bye bye.